Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast, brought to you by Agrible, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Well, some of the big things we're going to be covering in this video will be the deep low pressure system we'll see developing on Friday into Saturday morning, spreading widespread rain across the eastern part of the country with the severe weather threat here, but also big-time snows on the backside. So we're going to analyze that first. We're then going to talk about a mid-December warm-up and maybe see if it has some legs to it, maybe last a little bit longer as we develop a trough here off the west coast United States. We're going to finish this up with kind of a longer term outlook with South America. So let's get right on into this. In the overnight hours on Wednesday into early Thursday morning, there was a warm front pushing through this region, bringing in some widely scattered showers, snow showers there. So if you're waking up early in the morning on Thursday watching this, be careful for some very slick roads across parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, northern Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan. But the big story is what we see coming in here out west. We have a deep trough that's getting on shore, and that is going to be the instigator for some pretty unsettled weather over the next several days. Now, looking across the Pacific, the flow of the jet stream is quite zonal. It's not high amplitude, and we have a fire hose of precipitation coming here on shore. But it is this little trough here and the one that follows it that's going to keep our pattern quite active in the coming days. So just keep this in mind as we progress forward. Starting off, though, I want to show you the weather.gov all hazards map, and we're going to focus first on the fact that the map's going to get quite colorful over here in the next 24 to 36 hours as the system comes on shore, bringing in a lot of precipitation into the Intermountain West in California. But you'll also see it get more colorful right here in the middle part of the country. We already have a winter storm watch in this area. I expect that to expand. I also expect to see winter storm warnings emerging in this area as well. We will also see quite a bit of rain here and severe weather threat to the south. So we got a lot to diagnose here. So I want to show you my high resolution model first. So this is the NAM, and we're going to watch this kind of animate forward over the next 60 hours or so. We're going to try to diagnose what the major players are going to be. In the day on Thursday, as the warm front progresses through the southern Mississippi River Valley over towards Tennessee, Kentucky, and then into the Ohio River Valley, we will be seeing widely scattered showers in this area. But you can see the major wave kind of coming on shore here out west, and that's really reflected well in the 500 millibar pattern you see down here in the bottom right-hand corner. So how does this system progress? That's the major thing we want to talk about. Well, getting through the day on Thursday, you can see where precipitation, look at that map in the upper left, that's where the precipitation is going to be spreading across the country. Look at how wet it is going to be out west as you progress through the day on Thursday. This show really gets going for the middle part of the country on Friday. So what I've got you through here is Friday midday into Friday evening. And this is where I wanted to stop and kind of do some analysis. Now look in the upper right-hand corner map. To start things off, we have strong moisture transport out of the southeast, right out of the Gulf of Mexico, into the low pressure system, which is sitting here. Above that, though, about a mile to a mile and a half above that, we have strong southwesterly winds. And what does that spell? That spells wind shear. So as this trough comes through, exciting this wave and developing this low pressure system, we are expecting to have strong wind shear, a destabilized atmosphere, which produces a strong to severe thunderstorm threat in the area that I'm coloring. So if you live in this area, watching this video, you can see in the upper left-hand corner that it's going to be a very stormy afternoon and evening there in that region of the country. As we progress forward, you're going to see the trough lifting. Let me get rid of my drawing so it's a little clearer here. The trough lifts through the middle part of the country, and now we've got a full-blown developed cyclone. It is going to be extremely wet and stormy in through this area, and then on the backside, we're talking some big snows. We're going to talk about those in just a few minutes. So this is kind of our high-resolution look at this system that comes on shore in California and progresses into the middle part of the country. Some very warm air out ahead of it, a lot of destabilized, moist, unstable air, and on the backside, some cold air coming in. So to show you what the European model is doing with this, I've been impressed with its consistency on the placement of the low. It has moved it in its most recent runs a little bit farther back and to the west. So this is now sitting somewhere, by the time we get in midday Saturday, sitting somewhere in the Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska border. And what that's done is it's kind of pushed the heavier snow bands a little bit further to the west as well. So let's kind of take a look at what the European model is projecting for this system. So we can see, let's watch it again, we can see that as we get things started, the system progresses through Iowa. Look at the snow we're expecting in Nebraska, South Dakota, even stretching all the way up into Wyoming and Montana as well, but then spreading from Nebraska through Iowa into Minnesota and Wisconsin. The system does fall apart as it moves toward the northeast because of the tilt of this trough, but it will certainly be bringing unsettled weather all the way from the Gulf Coast to the northeast with the heavier snows back there in the Midwest and Great Lakes states. Now, cold air comes in behind it, and just to kind of keep the video going here, I'm just going to tell you the next thing I'm watching, the next big system, would potentially be on the 6th and 7th of December. So we're going to watch for something to emerge right there on the 6th and 7th, and that's because high pressure settles in over here, good moisture transport, and the next shortwave comes through, and that just gives us the development of another system right here in the middle part of the country. So the pattern is active and is going to stay active at least through the first 10 days of the month. But I don't have the details yet on this system that's coming through around the 6th, 7th, and 8th. We're just trying to tell you that it is going to be active. So let's look over the next 7 days and get a good idea about what we're going to see there. On the right, total accumulated precipitation from the operational European model. Very wet down here along the southeast as that cold front comes draping through, plus multiple days of rain out ahead of this next system. Soaking rains here in the middle part of the country in the eastern Corn Belt, as well as the warm, moist air prevents snow in this area with the first system. The big snow is going to be in the back side of this, where we could potentially be getting anywhere between 6 and maybe 12 plus inches, especially in South Dakota, Nebraska, western Iowa, northwestern Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. So watch out if you are in this area. That is the region I'm most concerned about with this next big system. Again, coming in Friday, Saturday of this at the end of this week. Now, beyond that, check out what the pattern's doing here. As I animate this forward, here's the first trough kicking off that major low pressure system. We've talked about that one. Let's now talk about where that one's going. You see behind it, we are developing this trough here that's going to be coming onshore around Tuesday, December the 4th in the Pacific Northwest. And that's one that swings through the Four Corner states and potentially, as it digs into Texas, gives us the upper level support to develop that next system. Okay, so that's the active pattern I've been talking about, staying active. But why I'm showing you this map is I want you to see what the model's doing around the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. You see, last video I talked about the presence of this trough feature developing here in the Gulf of Alaska. Looks as though we're going to be sharing a lot of the cold air across the North Pole from Greenland and Iceland over into the Gulf of Alaska. And that is allowing for the development of a ridge in the middle part of the country, and therefore a temporary warm-up once we get beyond these next two big systems that come through. So 9th, 10th, 11th start to potentially see some moderation in our temperatures. And that's what I want to talk about here, because as I animate out for you the temperature anomalies getting you through the next 15 days, there's the cold air that's certainly going to be locked into place as we get through the first 10 days. But look at what the model's trying to do here by the time we get past the 9th. Bringing in some warmer than average conditions. Now remember, it's still December. It's going to be cold, but this is a reprieve from the very cold weather we've seen in the month of November so far. So speaking of November, this is what November has looked like. It's over here. And two of our best analog years have been the November of 2014 and the November of 2003 when we look back over the past 15 years or so. So the question becomes, if these years, November of 2002, November of 2014, look like November of 2018, what happened in their Decembers? In general, moderating temperatures. Now remember, we're just looking at two analog years, and there are big differences which would make me say these are not going to be the closest matches, but there's certainly some recent matches. So let's kind of see what our dynamical models are saying. So we're going to animate for you here the European model. As I said, active pattern, cold air stays locked in. If there are any warm-ups, they are brief and they're out ahead of low pressure systems like the one we're going to be seeing at the end of this week. But you can see here that by the time we get to mid-month, the European model and its ensemble members want to be bringing in, near average to warmer than average conditions. Now, how do you interpret this forecast? Well, first of all, our dynamical models are known to not perform well beyond, 7, 8, 9, 10 days. But when we run them in ensemble mode, we can kind of get a general picture of what's going on here. This is the way that I want you to interpret this. The European model is not, at this point, retaining and keeping bitterly cold air in the middle part of the country as we progress through the middle and end of December. That's the interpretation. Don't see this as a heat wave. So I want to give you another bit of information about this. Here's one of our dominant factors as we progress through December. It's this thing I've been talking about called the Madden-Julian oscillation. Now here's your quick interpretation. When the MJO is in phases 7, 8, 1, and 2. That tends to be the colder phases for central United States. When it goes into phases 3, 4, 5, and part of 6, those are the warmer phases. So right now the MJO is here in phase 7, and it's going to be spending the next several days in phase 8, phase 1, phase 2, and the beginning of phase 3. Hence the colder weather we're seeing correlating nicely with this tropical feature called the MJO. But as we get out of phase 2 and then into phase 3, 4, 5, and watch this progress all around like this, we would expect those December analogs to come into play. Now, this is just one of the things I watch. I also watch, in addition to the MJO, something called the quasi-biennial oscillation, the angular momentum of the atmosphere, and also El Nino, which maybe right now is reaching kind of a peak in its anomalies. And of course, we're always watching the position of the polar vortex. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that I think that once we get beyond this mid-December potential warm-up, I don't see anything in the cards right now that would make me say that we go back into these really, really cold temperatures that we've seen in November as we progress through December. Now listen, winter of 2002 to 2003 and 14-15 did have major cold air outbreaks in January and February. So I'm not saying winter's over. I'm just saying moderation from mid-December through the end of December is a possibility. It's something I just want you to be aware of, and it's something I'm going to be watching. Okay? So I just want to kind of give you some kind of speculative long-range forecasting. To finish up, though, I'd certainly want to talk about what's going on in South America. We've been forecasting for a while for this region to be wet, and it certainly is. We've had some support in the upper levels of the atmosphere suggesting that. But as I've also suggested, the transition in the tropics might be toward, once we get into December, toward a little bit drier time period there in Brazil's major growing regions, but plenty of moisture leading up to that. Where it will be dry is probably right here in southern Brazil and parts of northern Argentina. We just see over the next 15 days that the model is really wanting to keep the main part of the Brazilian monsoon focused like this, which is going to keep some drier air in place into this region. It doesn't mean it won't rain there at all. It's just drier than climatological average. And I also want to add one last bullet point onto this. We know that the first crop beans went in on time, no trouble. The monsoon has shown up on time. Because of that, the safrinha crop will also likely go on time because of the fact that we won't be delaying getting the first crop out. And there have been some early estimates that have shown that they're expecting that safrinha crop to be large. And so this means corn and cotton crops could be big this year. We're getting some early estimates that say it will certainly be a large crop coming out of Brazil. So I just wanted to throw that out there and just show you that kind of the weather is supportive of that forecast right now. But with that, let's wrap up this long video. That was a lot to think about, and let's go and wrap this one up, though. I want to thank you for your attention. Hope you look forward to the next forecast coming up on Monday morning. In the meantime, head to Agrible.com to learn and get real-time agronomic and sustainability insights all at the touch of a button. Look forward to talking again after the weekend.